this, you just email me and say, Donna, thank you. And I'm good. I mean, that's how high tech it is. So then anybody that didn't get a packet, if you'll just like mark it on there, I can send you all files to go with that. So, and then two other things that I'm going to do while I'm just sort of talking about destination and imagination is I'm going to send around a couple of samples of program materials from previous years. So this is from 2 years ago. This is what you get when you purchase a team membership or a team pack. You get a package that includes a roadmap, which is 16 lesson plans. It is all the challenges. These are the full challenge, and then I've got 6 challenges plus the one for the little kids, Rising Stars. And then there's also the rules of the road, which is sort of how your teams are structured and you know, what items are exempt from cost and how old kids can be on a team and so forth. So these are the materials for 2 years ago, and then and then here are the challenge materials from last year. New challenges are released September 1. So even if you were to pay for a team today, and of course DI is happily going to take your money whenever you send it, you still won't get the materials until September 1. And that's probably because there are a lot of states where school starts early, and they're trying to keep the playing field level by everybody getting them at the same time. So again, there's the challenges, the rules of the road, and the roadmap. And I'll start them going in any direction. It just gives you a sense of sort of what the materials look like. So I will tell you that my name is Donna Dries, and I've been a volunteer doing DI since my daughter, who is now 35, was on a team in 3rd grade, and I started out by knowing Zero. She was pulled in with a group of 6th graders that she played softball with, and I found it to be a place where she could be smart. She had it in her mind that smart girls, athletes weren't smart. I don't know where she got that, not from us, but she didn't want people to know that she was pretty smart. And so this being on a team allowed her a safe place to be as creative as she could be. And I liked that. And she had a very creative team manager who was the most scattered person I've ever met, who was warm and loving and brought out wonderful creative ideas that could never get closure. The kids would never, they were still thinking of something they could do to change it on the way to Sunset High School for that very first competition. They were completing the paperwork in the car because they forgot to do the paperwork. Okay, I'm sure. And it's 7 o'clock in the morning, it's pouring rain. The papers are on pencil, and we're going into one of those places where you make the copies at the 7-Eleven. And the kids were frazzled before they got to their first tournament. And all I could think is there's got to be a better way. They need somebody else to help with that team next year that likes to shuffle paper and, you know, put up a schedule. So that's how I became involved. And I loved it. I loved watching the kids be smart. I loved watching them come up with wonderful ideas. I loved watching them evolve from a group of kids that didn't talk to each other or that didn't know each other in school to a cohesive group that solved the challenge and came away feeling really proud of themselves. When Nicole outgrew DI, I say, good for you, I'm not done, and so here I am. Mostly I've been a tournament director and a trainer. So that's sort of my background, and I did this as a after work activity in between softball games and all of those other things that we have in our lives. I retired 2 years ago, and that sort of, oh good, now you can be the state director, and so you know how that works. Okay, so anyway, so that's my background. I'm a former high school, college teacher, and so I have some background in education, but mostly I guess I'm just a volunteer. I mean, that's really what it is. So, basics about DI. A team of up to 7 kids, grouped by age or grade level. Kindergarten through 2nd grade, rising stars, non-competitive. 3rd grade through 5th grade, elementary level. And there's an age cap with that. Middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th, or approximate age, and then secondary. There are also university level teams. We don't, I mean, if we had a university level team in Oregon, I would love to showcase them at a tournament. However, most teams that have been university level teams go straight to globals and compete there. And so there were 30 teams at globals this year that were university level, which is very cool to watch. Most of those teams, those university teams are, I'm sidetracked already, sorry. Most of those university level teams are virtual, so they may have been a team in Texas or they may have been a team in California, but now, so there was a Reed College, Princeton, Berkeley team this year that took 1st place. So you know that group of kids, right, they planned their attack and got to Tennessee and built everything there on site and competed. So anyway, all right, so teams are formed with up to 7 kids and 1 or 2 caring adults, and I say that truthfully, who are willing to put in the time to work with a team. Most teams in Oregon start work in September when the challenges are released, and they meet 1 to 2 hours per week through the fall, mostly doing instant challenges and getting to know each other's strengths initially. We'll talk about instant challenges in a minute, and I'm actually going to have you guys do it. So they start out by learning about each other as a team. And so that means they might play categories or they might play other kinds of games where they're each contributing to them. They might do instant challenges on a regular basis, 2 or 3. For teams, I've been doing this long enough that I've collected all the instant challenges that are provided to me for tournaments over the last 30 years, 25 years. And I put them on a disc. You can buy, I'm sure DI would love to sell you the volume 8 of the instant challenges or whatever, but I'm sure our sales in Oregon are pretty low because when you come to training, I just give you a disc with all the challenges on it. And part of the reason for that is I want you to have a variety of challenges to solve. And you're already paying money to have a team, and it's a service. If you want that sortable by the name of the challenge, that's not on my disc, but you can pay for that. Anyway, so I give you the instant challenges. There are some that come with the materials. But basically an instant challenge is an activity that the kids do in 5 to 10 minutes where they build something, make up a story, make costumes from the materials, whatever the challenge calls for, and they do it quickly. And they're timed, and they solve the challenge, and they're given scores, and they know ahead of time what they're going to be scored on. How tall the tower is, 1 inch per 5 points, or it spans a bridge and it holds balls that move across a table, and you get more points because it spans a greater distance. Or you're building a tower out of these materials, but you're also creating a story over here about the tower. Oh, and you have 4 minutes. And there's a part 1 and there's a part 2. in the second part, you can't talk. I mean, the kids get thrown with all of these different ideas, and working together over time, the team will learn who's good with stuff, who's good with stories. If it's a building challenge, these two kids are going to automatically start building, but oh wait, there's a story that goes with it. So these kids are going to be working on the story. You've got one person that's really good understanding the rules and paying attention to, okay, we've got 2 minutes left, you know, and keeping the kids on track. They learn those kinds of things about each other over time, and doing instant challenges. It doesn't come automatically. So we have strategies that are included with the training that help the kids to learn that about themselves. So this week, Tina is the rule person, and you're the timekeeper, and you're the builder, and you're the performer. Oh, next week we shift everything, and you're the timekeeper, right? And over time, the kids learn, I feel really comfortable being the rule person. I got you guys to go in the right direction, or keep you from going in the wrong direction to solve the challenge. So that's a piece of it. As a team manager, when the kids are finished working on an instant challenge, you debrief. And you debrief by having the kids talk about what they did or how they did and what they could do the next time to make it better. So the tower's falling down because that very last second, they couldn't help themselves. I just want one more inch. And they start working on it, boom, it falls to the ground, and they get no points. Okay, so kids, what would you do next time differently? And they'll tell you, they know exactly, oh, we shouldn't have futzed with it at the very end, and if we hadn't added that last piece of paper, it wouldn't have, right? Or we should have separated into two groups instead of everybody working on the tower and then going over here to work on the challenge or the story. We should have separated because we only have 3 minutes. I mean, the kids will figure those things out. And then maybe 3 weeks from now, you give them the same challenge and say, come up with a different solution. They'll dig deeper. They'll come up with something more creative or different. Or if your kids don't have any skills in building and they seem excited about building things, you might want to give them a lot of instant challenges that have them build stuff so that you can teach them about technique or building. And if you don't know about building things, which I always prayed that our kids would not pick a structure challenge, because that was not something that I would have ever been comfortable with. But no, I had hands, so they all wanted to be on the stage and perform. But if I didn't know, I could bring somebody in to do instant challenges with them that did know engineering, or that at least had better basic skills than I had. The same thing with, if you have all very shy, quiet kids, you could bring in somebody that has experience in the theater arts to help them with the instant challenges. You know, you guys were coming up with a great story, and you had characters, and you were making sounds, and had funny voices, and it was a wonder, but you were all looking at the ground and nobody could hear you. Okay, they can critique themselves. They can do that by videotaping and having one child sit out and, you know, wow, we were great, except I couldn't hear us. But I know we were funny because everybody was laughing. I mean, they see that in themselves. And now with camera phones, I mean, it's so much easier that, you know, I guess that it's phones, cameras, but whatever, you know, they're really cameras that we carry now. So that is sort of a basic piece of a DI meeting. Every meeting would include at least 2, sometimes 3 instant challenges. That's about a half an hour. I mean, it really doesn't, you know, 10 minutes to solve a challenge and debrief, that's really all you need, and then you move on and do another one. So what happens in the second half of that meeting, or the second part? Well, depending upon the time of day, you may need to feed them so that they don't chew on a table leg or whatever. Or run around if they've been boxed in all day working. And every teen group is going to be different. But then typically what happens is they start talking about the second part of the program, which is the team challenge, which is that single challenge that they select to work on over an extended period of time and present a solution that's completely theirs in the form of a 7 to 8 minute performance at a tournament in March. And like I have requested, just so you know, Glencoe High School for the tournament, and that hopefully will be successful there. And that's the first weekend in March. And the state
weekend of March?
Pardon me?
First weekend of March?
First weekend in March.
Noted.
And I have worked around ballet books, I've worked around kids that do something else, chess. I mean, there's like a lot of things that time of year, I get it. It's crazy. So the options for kids are, we have another tournament in the southern part of the state the following weekend. So I get, because it's harder for me to, in the metro area, you would think that it's harder for me to get a location than it is down in south of Eugene. So if you have a conflict, there's no problem with you driving in there and competing at the southern tournament. We just need to know ahead of time so we can get it in the schedule. And I do have teams that do exactly that. I'm in ballet books, or I'm in mock trials or whatever, because it's the same kids. It's those kids that are in music and they play 3 sports and they are in academic activities. And I get it. It's the awesome kids, and they're busy. But I've also like scheduled people at 8:30 in the morning so they can get to chess. I mean, I'm sorry, we just do it. Okay, so the challenges are, I'm skipping around. Okay, let me finish this part and then I'll go back to sort of more basics. So the challenges, there are 6 challenges that are written every year by a team of educators. They are, like this fall, they'll release some challenges that were written by challenge writer teams 3 years ago, and are printed up. They've been through a whole series of, do they meet all the different educational requirements of, but basically they're well-rounded challenges that include some of everything. There's a technical challenge, and an engineering challenge, and a scientific challenge, and all of those are super strong in the STEM area. However, they're presented with a story, and so there's performance as well. So if you've got techie kids, yes, there's more points in the technical challenges, but they still have to have some performance skills in there too. Similarly, there are performance challenges, fine arts, and improvisation that have more points built into them for performance, but they still have to come up with a technical element of some kind, or use technical methods to create some kind of item, a prop, something that happens in their performance, because we're trying to raise well-rounded children, right? Okay, so then the last challenge is Project Outreach, which incorporates sort of community service. So kids, last year, the first place elementary team in the state raised money for the Humane Society. And the fact that they raised a lot of money, that's awesome. They did a whole thing at school and got teachers to compete against each other, and they gave out Golden Labrador awards, and all of that. But you can't score kids based on their charity, because we had a group in Salem that read to kids, little kids, and collected books and gave them to homeless kids. And we had another group that did bullying and an anti-bullying thing in their community. And so you can't score them on that, but how the kids put together their marketing materials and how they promoted their program is what they get scored on. So if they're doing a community service project, and a lot of high schools require that for graduation, or they like it on the resume or whatever, you can incorporate the marketing of your community service activity as a project outreach and do DI that way. You still have to do an instant challenge. Anyway, so when the kids come to tournament, they present a solution to one of those challenges: technical, structural, engineering, and they go into a room and do an instant challenge that they've never seen before, that hopefully is hard. I try to pick hard ones. And to get to that point, we as an organization supply instant challenge nights where the kids can just come and practice instant challenges with other teams. We did 9 of them in the Portland metro area last year. And so, maybe Laurelhurst neighborhood isn't convenient for you, but maybe the one in Hillsborough or the one at Village Home or, whatever it would be, or at Markham down in Capitol Hill. So we sort of move around and try to get instant challenge nights that are convenient. And most teams came to at least 2. November 8th, we're going to do a skills fair for kids, and that will be in Salem at Sprague High School, which is also the location for our state tournament. And we're going to teach theater skills and set piece, how to make a set piece, and how to paint a backdrop, and how to sew. Oh, you can't sew? How else can you attach fabric? Well, duct tape, staples, because not everybody has access to a sewing machine or has somebody that can teach them how to sew. So we try to show kids how they can make costumes in other ways. The important piece so we teach them basic skills that they can apply. Will they apply all of the things that they might learn in the skills fair? But it might give them an idea of something that they could do later. And watching other kids at a tournament helps kids get ideas for something they can do different next year. So we just finished global finals, which first place teams in the state go, and sometimes they go, and sometimes they don't go because it's expensive, or they may go with a less than full team. Which always makes me sad because those other kids helped them get to that point. But not everybody can do that thing. And so we went with 10 teams, and out of our 10 teams, we ended up with 3 in the top 10, which, considering there are 1,465 teams there from all over the world, I'm very proud of our kids that did very well. And we had 2 more in 15 to 10, 10 to 15 range. So our kids did well, and I think part of that is that we try to help them by giving them skills to compete with the big states. We can't compete really with Texas. I'm sorry. I'd love to be able. We all have envy of Texas. They have 3,500 teams in the state of Texas. Oregon has 100. Total. It's like crazy. But we got back at them. All of our teams sat in the bleachers in the stadium. Okay, this is so bad. At the closing ceremonies, they gave us these rockets, and the kids were supposed to shoot the rockets onto the stage with their name on them. And then they were going to draw 5 of them, and they're going to space camp this summer because NASA is one of the sponsors. Oh yeah, that's where they're sending the affiliate directors this summer for camp. I'm going to space camp. It's in Huntsville in July. Okay, but I've signed up for the gyro, whatever thing. I paid the extra money to do that. Anyway, so I know. I'm sure you guys probably all think that sounds really fun. I'm old. It sounds scary. I don't do Disney rides. Okay, so anyway. So we sat in the bleachers at Global's above Texas. So here's this little sliver of kids in neon yellow from Oregon, right? 10 teams. I mean, there was like 70 people, 80 people total. And down below is 165 teams and all the families from Texas. Well, our kids decided they didn't care about space camp. They shot their rockets at Texas. Okay, so there it is. That probably shouldn't be on the video. Anyway, they thought that was really fun. Okay, sorry, I digress. All right, so the kids saw the challenge, and this last year, the second most popular challenge nationwide was the technical challenge. Hardest challenge I've seen in all my years of doing DI. And yet the kids read it and it just sounded so much fun. They had no technical skills. Most of the teams had no clue how to build vehicles with 2 propulsion systems. And so, but it sounded fun, the way it was written, right? So they struggled, and maybe their technical systems were one kid pushing another kid in a box. Okay, well, that wasn't the intent. I'm sure the challenge writers envisioned gears and motors and kids, you know, a motor going this way. The West Lynn team that went from Oregon placed 14th. They had a ramp that they built that was from the pew over here, probably, it was 25 feet, and it came apart in pieces, and they put it together like a puzzle, and here are 4 guys, right, sophomores, and they take this thing with hinges, and they team down, and they flip this ramp down, and it held a vehicle that was about this big, and it was on bearings on one side, and hydraulics or something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I did. But then, all the time this thing is going back and forth, right, this vehicle. They've got 4 boys dressed as pieces of fruit, a banana, grapes, a cantaloupe, and a watermelon. And they're having this whole skit about how the cantaloupe and the watermelon can't get married. Oh, because it's a cantaloupe. Instead, so they need to do this whole skit about they can elope. I mean, and it's funny, and they're doing this whole skit while this thing is moving back and forth. They were awesome. They were awesome. Anyway, but they actually had some technical skills. A lot of my teams didn't have the knowing how to do hydraulics and other stuff. But the kids learned it. You know, I said, how did you do this? Well, last year I signed up to Clackamas Community and learned how to weld. And this year I wanted to use the welding because Dad said it costs a lot of money for the class. Okay, that's a valid, you know, but I've had other kids that have learned how to sew in the summer or whatever. So by getting you guys started, just even if you just play with instant challenges this summer and pull kids together to see if they like it, I think that will go a long way. The key thing I want to say about being a team manager is you're really and truly, I mean, you're already doing this because you're in a homeschool situation, you're trying to make a difference for kids. But this is a different way of impacting kids, and I think that you'll feel at the end of the year like you really made a difference for kids. That I mean, it's a tangible thing that you actually feel at the end of the year. The kids do stuff that amazes you. You will read the challenge and you will immediately come up with a solution that you know they're going to do. I mean, it's totally how they're going to go. This is the best solution because it's what you thought. Well, guess what? They're never going to come up with what you came up with. And isn't that amazing? I mean, that's like the best part. And their ideas are second year with my daughter's team, non-techie. They said the challenge was they had to build a dinosaur and it had to, or something, that moved across the floor on its own power and it had to do two things, like, and they didn't tell you what, but two things had to move. And I'm like, oh, these kids don't have prayer. And so, but you know, you sit there and you're listening to them and they decided, we're going to make it water powered and it's going to be blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's not a chance in the world that these kids are going to be able to figure this out. Okay, and I'm thinking it's going to be on a gym floor, they can't have water, it'll damage the floor, how are they going to make a prop that has water on it? I mean, I'm thinking of all the things that won't work. Okay, in the end, they did a little motor that was wound up with a rubber band, a really strong rubber band, and they made like what looked like a little propeller in the water. They made a pan. They undercoated a dinosaur, and when the gears moved, the eyeballs blinked, and it moved from here to here, not very far. But to protect the gym floor, they had put down a tarp and painted it to look like a painter's plastic. And they had painted it with markers and stuff so that it looked like an ocean. And they had set some fake rocks made out of paper mache, and this dinosaur sort of moved through. And it was water powered because the propeller went in this pan of water and it moved the wheels. Okay, I would have never in a million years thought that a bunch of fourth graders and fifth graders could do that, ever. And think about all of the things. And so from my standpoint, when they started talking water, you know, I said, okay, I'm the school principal. I don't want water on my gym floor. What are you guys going to, how are you going to handle that? And, oh, well, you know, we could bring in a bathtub. I mean, they were thinking, or a big jug, and I said, oh, well, good, you know, we work on that. Well, then they went to the restore or whatever, and they came back. Tubs still cost $10, even used ones. I mean, so they had to come up with $1.50 painter's tarp. And it doesn't matter. They came up with solutions, and that's really all you want. And things work, and one of the things that we teach the kids is things are going to fail. You're going to try stuff that won't work. Awesome. Fail a lot because it's those really hard, those things at the end where you've really struggled to come up with a good idea. Those ideas are going to be more creative than those first things that come off your head. So as a team manager, the second hardest thing, besides finding a time that's convenient to meet with kids, that's the hardest thing, is that you have to do everything, and they have to do everything, and that you are a facilitator. The hardest thing ever. Because, as I said, you have all these ideas on your own, and you want to share them. And why aren't they coming up with your really good ideas? And well, that's not going to work. How do I guide them? So I did this little triangle. But basically, as a team manager, number one, you can teach them infrastructure. I mean, there's two ways of doing this. I've had team managers that have said, well, I can't do anything. I just throw them in the room and let them figure it out for themselves. No, you can't do that. So they need to understand the infrastructure. So you can help them with time management. You need to do more of that when they're in third grade or that age, 10, 11 years old, versus when they're in high school. In high school, you really can't throw them into a room and give them a pizza and they'll figure it out. But they need to understand the challenge. So that may mean that you read each part of the challenge and say, what does that mean to you? What do you think they're asking for? And sort of draw out those questions. And you can use CPS, or creative problem solving tools, which are provided, and to teach them about evaluating their work or coming up with ideas when they get stuck, brainstorming, that kind of thing. You can also teach them skills, specific, not, so if a child says, we want to make a costume, I don't know how to sew, you can't sit down and show them how to sew on their costume. You can teach them how to thread the machine, how to run the machine, how to run the fabric through, and let them practice basic skills. And then let them figure out on their own costume how they're going to use those skills. The same would hold true for lighting, building, anything that they need in performance. Drama teachers or whatever. You can't critique them. They have to critique themselves. So when the kids come up with their solution, this is only the team. And you as a parent can only ask them questions. So if they're working on their solution and they say, can't make this work, why? You have to look at them and throw right back at them and say, well, what could you do to make the gear work? And that's probably, to me, the hardest part of the program. Asking them those open-ended questions that make them figure it out for themselves. But in the end, that's the best part. When they can stand at a performance at a tournament with their props, their dinosaur and their backdrop or whatever it is they've made, and tell the appraisers who come out and look at their stuff after their performance, and the appraiser says, well, tell me how you made this. And the kids will start and they'll just like, well, first we tried this and it didn't work, and then we tried this and it didn't work, and then we did this. And finally, she had this idea and we came back and we built it and it worked. Oh, it's a sweet spot. It's so nice. And the kids are so proud. So they will, in fact, fill out a form called the Declaration of Independence where they come to the tournament, whether this stuff is done or not. Because we're teaching time management, just like it's all part of it, and sometimes things don't get finished. So they don't come necessarily with a complete solution to regionals. Hopefully they do enough that they can go to the next level, which is only state. So, okay, so just sort of summarize. Regular meetings, start out with instant challenge, start working on a challenge. The kids pick one that sounds the most fun to them. I would like to tell you they pick it based on their skills. They do not. Absolutely, they do not. They pick it based on, a couple of years ago it sounded like Cars, the movie, with talking vehicles and whatever. It was very popular. Okay, it was really hard. This last year with the 2 propulsion systems, tough. It was really tough. Yes?
What I haven't understood yet is there's 7, yeah.
There's 7 challenges, yes.
Do they pick a challenge? Do they know what the topic is
Yes.
in that challenge when they're choosing? It's not
they have like requirements and what you.
so they see all that before they.
Absolutely.
Right.
You could be meeting for a couple weeks, a month.
Well, I was just wondering, like, if part of the challenge is throwing them into just a
Right.
subject.
So let me,
like,
excuse me.
I sent them out. Did you get that when I
I
sent them
did.
the
I glanced through, but
Here, I have
not
it.
That's-
fully comprehensive.
So that's just the basic ones, but they know the
Yeah.
full.
Yeah, this
So
is
you
the
know, like,
synopsis.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So like, here's the synopsis, but the real champ of each challenge, that each one has like a 6 or 7 page document that tells them everything they have to do.
And so one that sounds fun, when you read the requirements, sometimes you think, well, that's probably not going to work for our team. And they might pick something else based on that. So they will see specifically what they must do. There's usually like how many things you have to meet. There's like all sorts of things you have to do, like an artistic thing, a technical thing, and a story.
Right, there's a story. And so like this technical challenge this year, if there was a vehicle and if they got a certain number of points for going one way and a certain number of points for having a second propulsion system, then they had a whole thing about a story. I can't tell you how many kids create stories with no end. Or with a beginning and a middle. Or there's a really great ending, but in the middle you have no clue.
But the requirements will say a story with a
Beginning,
middle,
middle,
and
and
end.
end. And so we
The
actually
requirements
do
are
a
very
workshop on teaching kids about a beginning and a middle and an end, and what does that mean? And we'll even get to the point where we say to the kids, if you think that your story may be confusing, it's probably not a bad idea to say, in the beginning of our story, blah, 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 And the story ends with happily ever after. And make sure that people understand that there were all three components. Yeah, so they select a challenge based on what sound, but even after reading the criteria, they really pick it based on, it sounds like it would be really fun to do.
Right, and I was thinking like Irish stuff, you know, or those things for this, the mystery food. They tape the lid off, but they don't know what typically, you know, specific things. That's what I was wondering. I didn't know if it was just a general
No,
category,
it's all
but
there.
actually being multiple.
It's all there, including, like I have all these different rubrics that I give to appraisers. I give you those in training. There's no secrets.
Okay.
What makes a good team? How do you know, because they get scored on teamwork, what makes a strong team? Well, a team of 6 kids where 3 of them are looking off at space and one of them is over-bossing the others and pushing their ideas is going to get way lower scores than a team where they're all engaged in a solution and then they come to a consensus and are supportive of each other during a challenge. And so they get scored on that. And it's very interesting to me how sometimes I'll have a team manager and they'll say, these kids have been fighting since the beginning of the year. They're all strong personalities and they're all a little bossy, or they run the roost at the house or whatever. And then I never thought that they could actually be a team. And then we get to a tournament. Oh my goodness, they're perfect. How did this happen? Why couldn't they have done this in my house? Or I've seen it the other way. These guys have been perfect all year. And they got into a fist fight at the tournament.
Somebody's crying.
Right, or no, I don't want to do that idea. I mean, you know, it's just very interesting. You know, it's like we used to say with softball. You never know what team is showing up on any given day. And you know, my daughter's team, I used to think they were, you know, amazing sometimes, but then every now and then, usually when we were driving a far distance to a tournament, they were just like, and you just, they're kids. Oh, they're kids. But you've still given them skills. So you're working toward a tournament, and the tournament seriously is because kids need a deadline. And yes, teams like to have, they like to win, and they like to get medals, and blah, blah, blah. And all of that is a motivator for some teams. For other teams, it's going to be, we want to learn the process. We want to have a good time. We want to learn the skills and learn the process this year and have some fun. But we're going to do some science with it. So guess what? You guys have to either pick engineering or the science challenge. I mean, every team is different. So I strongly suggest that the team sit down in the beginning and talk about what their expectations are, because it's a different level of effort for a team that wants to win, meaning going to globals or going to state or just getting it done for the tournament, versus a team that wants to have a good time. And it would be very frustrating for the 3 kids that want to win and their parents versus the others if they're not all pretty much on the same page. And so I've had teams and team managers that start out the year and say, we're brand new. We've never done this before. This is our learning year. We're going to have fun. And so is everybody good with that? I mean, and just sort of have that parent meeting so that everybody's on and understands that, versus the team manager that talks about doing the best they can. Do I have enough time for you guys to do a 10-minute instant challenge, or am I over top of my time?
You're fine.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I have an instant challenge on each table, and you can break into groups and solve it together, you know, at each table. It's a pretty simple one, but I think it's a good example, and it's easy for me to pass, quite honestly. And it's over here, and so if you could just this will give you a sense of what an instant challenge feels like. So if you were to just come to 2 different tables. Oh, good, you're right there.
Priscilla is gonna.
Okay. So, in essence, while you're getting to the table, I will say that you have, see, you're the one that would like to play with stuff. There's always that kid on a team that grabs the stuff and wants to play with it before they know what
I
it
just
is.
want to be on the camera.
Oh, come on.
It's always okay to grab stuff off the plate.
Okay, so this challenge is to build the tallest possible card house with multiple floors. And you're gonna have 6 minutes to use your imagination and the creative process to build a card house. So in the package, there's an envelope, and you should have cards of 4 different colors. Okay. Here and there's a second sheet that actually gives you the scoring. 20 points if no cards of the same color touch. 5 points for the first level, 10 points for the second level, 15 points for the third level. So a floor or a level is for the top and the bottom, just like in this room. Does that make sense? So I'll let you look at the scores. Okay, so a level or a floor is considered a roof and a ceiling with walls. Notice this room that you're in has a top with walls. That would be considered a level. Space must exist between the tops of each floor level, so you can't just stack them flat. Okay. You should alter as few cards as possible. You should build your card house with as few of the same colored cards touching as possible. More points will be given for unaltered index cards. A taller house, more levels, and cards not, same colored cards not touching. Does that make sense? Oh, that's to trick you, that picture. I'll tell the other table that too. You can build it any way you want.
No, I said these cards are the altered cards because they're bent.
They're bent. Oh, yes. Okay. So I'm going to give you 6 minutes and talk. I've also given this challenge to kids and told them they could talk for the first 2 minutes and then not for the last 4. So you may begin.
Okay, because you always want to get as points possible. It's not always about like, so this has nothing to do with creativity and everything in building. And so 20 points is huge. You have no same color touching, so.
So there's 6.
Oh, for nine. So if you so you want to get two definitions. So this is the only way to look at it. Because we've got so 2 inches for every height, 2 points for all 3 of them, 2 points for all together. We're only supposed to be talking right now, not building.
3 points for each, so.
Donna, we're just talking right now, not building. Is that what that is? Oh, sorry. Oh. Are we supposed to be building or just talking?
What?
We can build and we touch.
You can build and talk. Yes.
Do we hear if it's this way?
This will give you more height, but all we need is
So
scoring.
you're actually getting extra time. You just set the time.
So, do we have to have them down at 4?
So the thing that I want to talk something.
They get more points for her.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have to do the cards. Right?
Uh-huh.
They forget about building height.
Oh,
So we would be interested to see.
what happened? And how long do we have? Is it 10 minutes?
6 minutes. 5 minutes and 26 seconds. So is what I'm saying making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think it's great. I'm excited.
Oh, good.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, it helps it so it doesn't slip. Nope, nothing for width. That is the most important for.
This is one of those where you can't stand to not make it. Did they just knock it?
Yeah, she sneezed.
Oh.
She's holding it up and sneezed.
So do we want to do 4? And then line and 4, line would be 5, 10, 15. We've got 24. Is there a 4 that way?
I think how it's for scales. Yeah,
So we only need
I
2
was
days.
at Concord Elementary, which is now closed over in Milwaukee, and they had the first Boy Scout charter in the state. It was from like 1900 or 18. I don't even know. I mean, it was.
It's crazy.
Maybe you should alternate it by turning it down.
This is totally going on Facebook.
Oh, and the idea.
Yes. I don't think they'll care.
Wait, it's 3 points.
They love it.
Maybe, can we switch those two? Yeah.
We have the time, Donna?
Oh, yes.
That would be the foundation. Or 6 times.
3 minutes and 3 seconds.
3 minutes.
And
More than 4 hours, so we probably should go up.
So we just need that. To get to the fourth. I would say that's a level. Bottom floor.
A level like 4 is considered a force. And this room is at the top.
Stable enough, it's gonna get all right here though. See what I'm saying? It's not just
I feel like it's okay though, because it's like half.
2 minutes. No. We did evaluations in my last job, which was 20 years. RMC research, we did third-party evaluations of the.
I still just allowed to.
So MRTC, I mean, we did some stuff.
wondering if adding one more
Early childhood in poverty areas, yeah, or actually outside this, no, actually outside, like out of the town.
Narrow 1, 2, 1, 2.
Down in the valley.
I'm going back and forth.
Yeah.
It's the verses.
Like this. Okay.
1 minute.
Okay.
We must rebuild.
We must rebuild.
I'm like not gonna touch this table.
Don't breathe, yeah. Stop breathing.
Keep going. It's 4 points for each level. Are we missing this side over here? We're done.
That's all touching at the same time. So we're good. Okay.
25 seconds. This is the panic part. Then they all start like,
Very, very steady. Because it's still kind of wobbly. Maybe you should put one on the base. Maybe you should just leave it.
It's not touching.
I think you should just leave it. I'm such not a risk taker. I'm not a risk taker.
15 seconds.
I think this is the slippery side.
So I will, so then with kids, I would say, step away. Okay, good job. Okay, so like,
Aspect of that.
for this team.
Look at that building.
Counted the
Nice.
last one because they did it after the
The aftermath.
team. So This is actually a good challenge for a variety of reasons. Number one, okay, you guys didn't bend any of your cards or alter them, but in the end, you get more points for height than you do for, and so just somebody that was a rule reader that would look through the challenge and go, okay, it doesn't pay us to not bend the cards. But people see that one piece and become so focused on having the cards be flat. So there would be some structure lessons here. You could talk about building a really strong base and moving up from, and it's really hard not to want to make it as tall as you can, and you get greedy. We all do. I mean, I can't even tell you. You know, you could have torn the cards.
Can we do it again?
What?
Can we do it again?
30 seconds of that.
Okay, but you could have torn, but you
That's
could
what I
take
just
this
said.
home, you could have torn the cards and dog-eared them.
That's what I said, make slots.
And it would have made
That'd
the
been good,
base
yeah.
really strong. Well, that's altering, but people only think about altering as, okay. So if you were to give that to the kids, I mean, this is like something that you could easily pack to go camping or whatever in the summertime. And it gets everybody sort of thinking, okay, we're gonna do it again tomorrow night. Let's do it differently, so you need 2 sets of cards. It's just, but it's fun. I mean, I think it's fun. Okay, so that would be a typical instant challenge. Everybody's likely to want to give the kids more time. You know, oh, we're not done. And you would go back and say to them, okay, but that's all the time we have this time. It didn't work, you got 0 points, but look at how well you worked together as a team and how supportive you were of each other. And then the next time they do it, they're gonna figure out a way to work faster and get it done so that they get some score. And over time, that's how the kids learn. And it's really difficult, especially when they're like adorable little 3rd graders, to not give them as much time as they want. But they're not learning time management that way, right? And that's another piece of it. They won't get extra time at a tournament. The timer will go off and they'll have to pull their hands away and step away. What I've seen teams do at the end is step away a couple minutes ahead of time and go, and we're done. And all of them bow together. And then obviously it's practiced, but it's just some way to let the appraisers know, okay, we're a team and we've decided we're finished, okay? So who comes to a tournament and appraises the kids? People ask me that a lot. A lot of my people are alums who have been on teams. They're the hardest scorers ever because their recollection of how amazing they were when they were on a team has been inflated. It's sort of like, I forget how much it hurt to have a baby, but then you go back in and you go, oh. Okay, but you forget over time because all these other things have happened. Well, alums remember that they were fabulous, and they want the kids that are on teams now almost all of them score hard. You have former team managers, you have teachers. We bring in, every team provides me with a volunteer or 2, somebody to work the shirt sales or the, whatever, a door monitor, but then somebody hopefully to actually work on an appraisal team. Typically, if it's your first tournament, it would be a non-scoring role because I have enough people who are experienced, and I guess I would rather have really experienced people understand and score the kids. But they have a criteria. I provide the criteria ahead of time, so it's not, you know what you're working toward for the kids. And you can say to them, what do you think, guys? Was this a good example of good teamwork? And they'll look at it and go, oh, no, we were fighting, or nobody was answering or whatever.
But the judges wear like their appraisers wear costumes and they're super excited for the kids, and then afterward they come up and say, this is amazing, how did you do this, or whatever, can you tell us about this?
So the kids get scored on paper, but then for what they perform, but they also, not during the instant challenge, but in the team challenge, the judges come up afterwards, because sometimes things don't work, but it was an amazing idea. Or maybe there's some real intricacies to a costume that they made, and you don't see that from sitting and watching the team. certainly the appraisers get up and move so they can see what the kids are doing, but it's not the same as getting right down and looking at it from behind and asking them how they solved it. So they have like 3 or 4 minutes to actually sell what they did, if that makes sense. First of all, they made a scale model Volkswagen bus. Turquoise and white, I mean, to scale. They even like got little tires and made them out of clay, and I mean, it was amazing. But then they did this whole thing with Martin Luther King getting shot, and the stage became a pulpit, and this thing came down, and it was a cross, and there were signs, and you knew it was Martin Luther King, and then they popped a balloon, and the kid fell over, and then the stage, well, everybody in the audience was just, right? Because, I mean, it shocked us. I mean, I'm not, and then you watched, and this girl actually dressed as a guy stood up and was George Wallace, and they were talking about segregation, and then they talked about human civil rights and in the United States. And so then I can't tell you how emotional it was to watch this group of 6th grade kids do this performance. And so then afterwards we're talking to them and even just displaying the shooting was a huge risk because it's, you know, 0 tolerance and whatever in the schools. So we talked to the kids, and they said, we're listening to all this talk about civil rights now, and we're thinking about how it was and how it feels like we're going back to the way it was, and in their class lessons, and they were just talking about it in so thoughtful and mindful of sort of, we knew we had to take the risk and show, we couldn't just talk about it. We felt like it needed to be performed. It was stunning. And then the very next team did a cowboy theme with, you went into a saloon and there was a guy dressed as a cow and somebody else riding on a horse, and the props were amazing, and they had a lamp, I mean, all these different parts of their set that looked totally different, and it was the same challenge. That's the part that's the most amazing, to watch all these kids read the same words and their ideas create this solution that's so unique to that group of kids. And that's why I love DI. Anyway.
Sounds amazing.
Is that enough?
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much.
So except for taking my husband on a cruise this summer to Alaska, I'm babysitting it at home. So if you have questions, email me. And I put the business card in the thing.